Hello friends, welcome to Mythwave Motion channel. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any interesting videos. Today's story is heartbreaking. If you want to know the story, just don't go. Stay online and be blessed by it. An elderly woman in her 70s was reduced to tears as she begs to be let into a shelter. We all have our grandmother, but the answer she gets is no. It hurts to see such or hear that. But some people have no conscience or compassion. It seems that this grandmother is unwanted. Why? Watch this homeless woman's heartbreaking story until the end to find out. Our heart will be open to doing good to people. It all started during the global crisis. Despite all the crises, let our hope be on God. Isaiah 42:31 says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." Niv, a woman over 70 years old, suddenly found herself without a home. It can happen to anyone, but God will always be there for us. The book of Deuteronomy 8:18 says, "But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms His covenant which He swore to your ancestors, as it is today." Niv, the grandmother, was not lazy. She was productive. Just that global crises affected her. And so the kind woman ended up on the street. The pensioner spent the first few days on the street, in a park, hiding from the cold, biting wind in a tent made from plastic bags. But then she heard about a shelter where they took in the homeless and offered them food, a warm bed and clothing. Hope surged in the old woman's chest. In life, do not always lose hope. Always trust in God. The book of Jeremiah 17:7-8 says, "But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in Him." Verse 8, "They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. Has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruits." Niv. Maybe her luck was about to change for the better. But it wasn't. The old woman came to the shelter with practically nothing, just a small suitcase with her belongings. But even that was too much for the shelter employees. They said that the institution was full, and there was simply no place for her to stay. Can you imagine how desperate this poor woman must have been? She had nowhere to go, no one to ask for help, and no one to protect her from the cold winter days. But the most shocking thing was the reaction of the shelter employees. How could they just watch this poor old woman turn blue with cold, knowing that in a few hours she might die right in front of them? What kind of people do you think work in this shelter? Are they heartless? Or maybe they have a twisted sense of humor? The old woman stood crying by the entrance to the shelter for a long time, but no one paid any attention to her. Eventually, the pensioner went out into the street again, where she spent the next few days hiding from the biting wind in doorways and begging for food. A passerby noticed the homeless old woman and decided to help her. She gave the old woman some money and food and also called the police. Perhaps the woman hoped that the law would punish the shelter employees for their callousness, but it didn't. When the police arrived at the scene, they fined the old woman for begging, after which they took her to the station. Then they called the woman's relatives and forced them to take her to live with them. And here's the thing, the old woman didn't have any relatives in the city. She had a son, but he lived far away and he didn't know anything about his mother's homelessness. So the police officers literally kicked the old woman out of the station and she was forced to return to the street. People passing by began to take pictures of the homeless old woman, posting her photos on social networks. One of these posts got on the news feed of a local volunteer. After a while, the old woman told her story. It turned out that the woman's name is Maria, and she had recently moved to this city to be closer to her son. But as soon as the global crisis hit, the old woman lost her job and savings, and eventually she found herself on the street. Volunteers were outraged when they heard about the old woman's story. They immediately went to the shelter where they began to look for the homeless woman. When they finally found her, they offered her to come live in a hostel, promising to help her find a better place to live. Maria agreed, and that's when the old woman's nightmare ended. Volunteers provided Maria with a place to live, food, and most importantly, the care she needed so much. Now the old woman is doing well. Her health has improved, and she spends most of her time with volunteers who helped her get through the hardest period in her life. Friends, what can we learn from the story? Callous and indifferent people are only interested in personal gain. They don't care about anyone but themselves. But no matter how bad things get, you should never give up. There are always people who want to help. You just have to reach out to them. Please like the video and share it with your friends. Goodbye.